Got the right song?
Got the right song? Of course I got the right song.
This is the intro song. Good.
Yeah, the question is it in the right place? There we are. I think we are in the right place, which means we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, people from around the world, you're listening to the world famous Jimmy Doane Show, the original,
that's right.
The original libertarian. We were podcasting way before people could listen to us.
Yeah, we were podcasting. I'm trying to think.
It was like 2000 or something.
Yeah, 2000 for sure.
Crazy. Y2K. Ha! We scoff. But these days we do this entire show, 1 hour for your listening pleasure, live twice a week at 4 o'clock, Wednesdays and Sundays, Eastern Standard, New York City time, Greenwich Mean Time.
Actually, it's Eastern Time. We're not on Standard Time.
Well, that's why I'm giving the other things.
Okay, Greenwich Mean Time or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna give Greenwich Mean Time.
I don't know what it is.
What is this?
5 hours difference.
Yeah, Greenwich -5 or +5.
One or the other. Right. It's 3:30 in the morning somewhere.
That's right. Greenwich -5. So
now, where are we? Where are we now? Actually, live. What site are we on live?
We're on Facebook.
Okay, this is Facebook.
Yes.
And it's Facebook / what?
Jimmy Doane.
Okay.
Which is spelled Doane.
Right.
And we're also, I will post a video copy of this up on YouTube and Twitter later on. People can find us also under Jimmy Doane, Doane, and then I'll post an audio copy of this up on about 10 different places. Apple Podcast and Listen FM and Luminary and Stitcher and SoundCloud and Spotify. So you can find us in any of those places.
No excuse for not hearing this show.
That's right. That's right.
No excuse.
So
besides, it's a terrible show.
Today is
if you don't like it. That's
not the 4th day of September.
Yes. Okay. Well,
in the year of somebody.
Yeah.
2019. What's happening?
What's happening?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. We've transported to someplace.
Yes, and we've gone back in time. We are in the walled city of Kowloon, which is the famous walled city. Not anymore. It's gone now. They bulldozed it in the late 90s or the early 90s, 94, I think. And it was one of the last remnants of, it was a military base at first. And then people just sort of started living there. You can see the houses stacked up 15 high behind you. I'm in some sort of dingy alley bar. But we're doing this to sort of support the Hong Kongers. Notice we've got the Hong Kong flag right there.
Right,
That's
there you go, yeah.
Although I fear for their situation. Although late breaking development today.
Okay.
Apparently, and I guess we'll start with that.
Okay.
And that is allegedly, Miss Lam, the governor, has withdrawn.
Right.
The extradition treaty.
Right.
Bill. Now, I don't know if this is fake news or I haven't cross-referenced and verified. I've only seen one report. But, and she had previously said that she was not going to do that for fear of Beijing or retaliation or some such thing. Now, the obvious questions are, does she mean it? Is this real? Or will they follow through with it? Will they reinstate the bill in 6 months' time? That's what the protesters were originally afraid of.
Yeah, it was held like in abeyance for a while, but they said it could come back any time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but if you think about it, I mean, I don't know why there's any prohibition on it coming back at any time anyway.
Right.
So you withdraw it, okay? Then we reinstitute it, we reinitiate it. This does not look good from my perspective for Hong Kong. I mean, this particular thing looks great, but overall, I've taken a farther look down the road at the future of Hong Kong.
And predict the future. Let's go.
Yes. Okay. Remember, I am horrible at predictions.
Crystal ball.
That's right.
Not here.
Fortunately, hopefully, I will be terribly wrong at this one as well. But I am afeared that the Hong Kongers are in for a reintegration with China.
Mm-hmm.
China did not mess with Hong Kong up until 1997 because they knew two things. Number one, the Brits were in charge, and it was a big deal if you were going to go up against the British.
Mm-hmm.
Until 1997. Now the Chinese would probably do it, whatever. But up until that point,
it was also up until that point. It was 30% of China's income.
It was a huge dollar amount, so you didn't want to ruffle the feathers or kill the golden goose or anything.
Right.
And they wanted it. They knew they were going to get it in 97. They got it. Now, at this point, no one is going to challenge China for Hong Kong.
No.
And this is like having a rogue city detached from the United States, or try to. I can't imagine, even the United States wouldn't tolerate that, as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, right.
But China, I do not think that they're going to allow the separate policies, separate two countries, two systems, one country, two systems. They're not going to allow the two systems to continue.
No.
And of course, they would end naturally anyway in 2047.
Right.
But who's going to do anything? And
Yeah.
this is a situation where normally in a revolution type situation, the people are on your side, and you can get away with civil disobedience, and you can force the government's hand because you can overwhelm them with numbers. That's not the case with the situation.
Probably not.
No, because China has a mega city and a mega country right on the border of this city.
Yeah.
And if they want to overwhelm Hong Kong with new citizens who are loyal, who have sworn loyalty,
That's right.
they'll be granted whatever it is. And the PRC, I said CCCP last time.
Was that because
That's the Soviet, of course.
the Republic?
Yeah, well, the
like that.
CRP, or the PRC is People's Republic of China.
Yeah, the People's Republic of
Right.
Oh God! Every time I see that, like the one in Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of
Congo.
which is like nothing like
Sure.
that. The cheese, or the Norks.
It is a
also.
complete democracy.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, good luck, Hong Kong, is all I can say.
Well,
And I hope they back off. What I would do, my advice at this point, changing my advice is move. Get your kids, get your shit, head over to Singapore, come to the United States. We would love to have you over here, but I do not imagine that Hong Kong is going to make it to the end of the century anything resembling its current form.
South Korea, Taiwan.
Well, I thought about Taiwan, and to me, Taiwan is, I have to admit, shocking to me. I can't believe that China has allowed Taiwan to exist. To me, and this maybe exemplifies the short-sightedness in the prediction I just made.
I see.
If they're going to allow Taiwan to do what they do, maybe they'll just let Hong Kong do what it does and just let it become a trading partner. But that's not the China that I learned about.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Speaking, though, of upheavals in Britain, what's his name, Boris,
Oh, yes.
has called for a snap election because about 20 of his conservative people that were made up his majority or whatever, when they had a thing here, and they rebelled against it. The big deal was, and I thought this was fascinating, the big deal was this one guy, literally, this is so different from the United States. This is fabulous. I love this. This one guy who was disagreeing with Boris literally got up out of his chair on the conservative side, walked over to the liberal side, and sat down
During
Boris's speech.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was it. He now didn't have a majority, and they
I
called.
joined their side.
I joined their
I
side.
defriend all of you.
I mean, I just thought to myself, it's such a big deal here when somebody,
Yeah.
they renounce their thing or whatever.
We made a press release.
the whole deal, and
you just get up and walk.
you just get up. I mean, he walks like 10 feet.
I seriously respect the parliamentary system. I love the Prime Minister's questions.
And they're all, they all applaud.
Yes.
Well, no, I don't think that's right.
Here, they do the whole
here,
thing.
yes.
You know what's going on. You know where people stand. It seems like they would be able to cut through a bunch more red tape than a normal process. And yet, England is somewhat socialist in their makeup at this point.
Yeah.
And you have these weird restrictions, no gun restrictions, and so there are knife incidents all over the place.
Right.
And they have anti-freedom of speech, where you can be arrested for calling somebody the wrong gender,
name, right?
or not calling them the right gender, or any sort of hate speech. So it's interesting as to why it didn't.
I wonder if, I'm curious to know, maybe one of our English friends can tell us, I wonder if that still holds true in Hyde Park. Because Hyde Park is a place where literally, almost any time you want to, you can bring your soapbox, or whatever, a wooden box out there. Get up on it, and you can have a little microphone, a little speaker, and you can say anything you want. That's basically their free speech place. And I wonder if I would imagine they might have something against insurrection, but other than that, you can pretty much say anything.
Yeah, the American system differentiates based on time, place, and manner of the speech.
Okay.
And so if it's in a courtyard, that's a good place. If it's in the middle of the day as opposed to the middle of the night, then that would be a good time. And then the manner. Is this some sort of just vocalization, or is this a firework display, or what type of speech is it? And of course...
Well, anyway, just to keep going over this to Boris John, just to move on.
Sure.
He's triggered a snap election. Apparently, that was happened like just now before I came over here, and it says the consequence of this vote means that Parliament is on the brink of wrecking any deal that might be able to get into Brussels and hand control negotiations to the EU. So what Boris is worried about is somehow he said that now the EU is going to be in charge of the negotiations on Brexit. Somehow, I'm not sure exactly. They have something here they call the Fixed Term Parliament Act. I have no idea what that is, but apparently that's some fairly obscure thing that happens, and there's Parliament was rebelling against their prime minister or whatever. I mean, he's still prime minister, and the snap election. I think the election is for October 15th, which it's like a little over a month away. That's when all of the people in Parliament, in the lower house at any rate, have to stand for re-election or election. And of course they make their case as to whether they're pro-Brexit or not. I guess that's what's going to be running on.
I didn't look into it since last time, but if we have any listeners in England, send us a little note.
Oh, you don't actually have to be in England. You have to know something about it. We're not... You're not going. If you speak with a Cockney accent or something, we'll take it in.
Right. Well, if you do, then tell us what he looks like over there.
That's right. But that's on. Let's just say that happened like 2 hours ago, and I thought it was interesting that there's the battle is on. Interesting, as we always know. What's fascinating is that if you're going to be running an election. A month and a half, these people that are running here in the United States have been running for the last year.
Yeah.
It's 2 years now, at least.
Yeah, there's a much smaller countryside to cover and a much
but still.
Smaller population and people.
Well, still, but
it's like doing it in one state. It's like being in one state, really.
I suppose, but if in Congress, with the 435 members, they have their own little constituencies. I mean, some places, like down in Miami, your constituency, you practically walk it. Now, in Wyoming, you can't. But mostly, if you're in New Mexico, you basically go to, the big city. That's it. And, that's where half or 3/4 of the people live in one city in New Mexico.
Right. Well, we know England is pretty well divided up among their little areas.
Yeah, they are. So anyway. Moving on, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I thought this was kind of interesting. Has no plans to retire, but the Trump said, good, go for it. We wish you the best. Stay the course and everything like that. Love you and everything. but and of course everybody in Washington is now running around saying, well, don't tell anybody. But we're having this secret meetings all over the place to figure out what we're going to do. When news dropped in late August that she had been treated for a tumor, Donald Trump went out of his way to wish her well. But behind the scenes, a well-established and stress-tested system made up of the White House, the Senate, and a constellation of outside conservative judicial groups stands ready to replace her if she steps down before the presidential election.
Well, of course they are. Although these days, the nominations have really just become a political advertisement venue. That is, the nominations or the confirmation hearings have just become an opportunity to attack the other side based on whatever the nominee says or doesn't say, and how you can paint the other person with it. Whether or not the person, the minority has not been able to stop any appointment since Robert Bork, or well, I guess they got the one of Obama's they didn't allow to get through. And then one of, I think, W's, when he tried to appoint his personal attorney one time.
Yeah.
But otherwise, for the most part, if you pick somebody that's known, that's on the list, the short list, they pretty much sail through there, and then they do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
So to try to fight for your particular guy is almost...
Well, it gets to be, as we've seen, what we had, especially with this last one, it was this bitter partisan thing. And, of course, the spineless Republicans should have just declared the hearings closed and voted. Instead of what they're worried about here, some are concerned that the White House isn't ready for how intense the fight would be to replace a liberal justice. The left is going to throw everything they have at whoever the nominee is, and it's going to be a brutal fight.
It doesn't matter. That's like the Fed saying we're going to fight with all of our tools. You can't do anything.
Yeah. Well, what I saw in this article, I thought was interesting, all eyes will be on Susan Collins, a pro-choice Republican senator who provided the decisive vote to confirm Kavanaugh. She's facing re-election in 2020 also. So
throwing everything in the other side would be going to her and saying, Susan, we're not going to support you in November. We're going to make sure you don't get re-elected. We're going to support somebody else. And then she's going to say, well, do your best. Hit me with your best shot.
Well, I think that now what it turns out in this article, they've already come up with names.
Like I said, everybody already has.
They have Amy Coney Barrett of the Seventh Circuit.
Yeah, she was on the list last time.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you look at the list?
Yeah.
Okay, and so
these are the same people who got circulated.
Okay.
Amy Barrett and
Joan Larson, Britt Grant, Allison E.I.D. and Amul Thapar of the Sixth Circuit. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, well, to me, this is going to be the same people that they circulated last time with a couple of names added, maybe one subtracted. So people are going to know those. Well,
it will be interesting because the howl is going to go up. Let's say that she decides for whatever reason about a year from now. This is interesting. Remember now, the Supreme Court starts the first Monday of October.
Okay.
So next year, 2020, the first Monday in October is like a month before the election. And if she decides like in September or August or September, say a year from now, to go away for one reason or another, you can imagine the howling that would go up. Just say
the timing could be horrible, but only if something happens to her. She is well aware of the effect that her retirement would have and the backlash and that type of thing. And she's not in any mood to retire. She hasn't expressed any interest in it.
No, she made it crystal clear. She's hanging on.
Right. However, she is 86 years old.
Right.
So there is a limit no matter who you are. And I don't know anybody, I don't know if we've had a justice who's been much older than 90.
Well, she's trying to get to The one who got to be 96, I think.
96?
Yeah, I think
okay.
there
I
was
was
one.
going to say, it seems like there was one that was 90 or 91.
Yeah, could have been a girl.
But that's pretty old.
Yeah.
So, do you really want to...
Well, that's, of course, a lot of people are saying that they should have term limits now and everything. But they can't, you have to change the Constitution. Good luck.
For example, Florida has limits for our judges.
Do we?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
We have an age limit.
Really?
Yes.
No
I
kidding.
think it's 70.
No kidding. I did not know that.
Yeah, and you're forced to retire at that point.
Wow. That's...
It could be 75.
I gotta say, I mean, seriously, when you think about it, there are some people who are pretty active at 70 these days.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
Really. I mean, we got a president who's over 70.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah.
It's silly to have an arbitrary age limit restriction. Let the people decide. Let the actions of the person reflect who they are. They can be measured, they can be seen, they can be reported on. If there's a problem, people will know it.
Well, you say that, but it is interesting because we have...
Occasionally people slip by, but for us to throw out a whole bunch of competent 71-year-old judges with experience, not a great, from my perspective, policy at all.
Well, now, what are the judges that we elect on election day? Which ones are those? Those are circuit judges, or what?
We have circuit judges and district judges.
And district, and they, but once they stand for re-election, I mean, who knows when
and
they
also
are?
The Supreme Court judges. Yeah, only the people who are involved know the names,
Right.
really. And I think the voter turnout for those...
They just say, shall so-and-so be retained?
Exactly, retained in office.
Yeah.
But there are lower level elections as well. Seems to me like even county judges are elected.
I think they are. I think they are here. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't think they're not selected.
Well, they can be. What normally happens, actually, the way most of them get in there is they're appointed by the governor
Right.
after vacancy.
After a vacancy, right.
And
Yeah, that's right.
someone will
Somebody
be a
croaks and,
magistrate. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they run for office. So.
Moving on, Air Canada has agreed to pay $15,000. This is Canada, okay? We love Canada. Has agreed to pay $15,000 to a couple because the word lift was not engraved on the seatbelts in French. Now you already know that their money is bilingual. You know, it's
Yeah.
And so a recent complaint turned into a lawsuit led to a windfall for two travelers. The federal court ordered Air Canada pay more than roughly 21,000 Canadian dollars, send a formal apology to a French-speaking couple in Ottawa for repeated language equality violations. Language equality violations.
Right.
The lawsuit concerned more than... Now here these people are obviously pro-suits.
Yeah.
More than 22 complaints between Thibodeau filed against the airline in 2016. I mean, and they allege violations of their French language. The couple complained that the word lift was engraved on the seatbelts, but not in English, but not in French. They also alleged that the French translations of the words exit and warning were in smaller characters than the English words. And finally, that a French language boarding announcement at the airport was less detailed than the English boarding call. Now, how did they know that?
Right.
Because they spoke English.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, this is a reflection of the difference between statutory law and common law.
Yeah.
And an illustration of why common law is so much better. And for people who don't know, the difference is, one, common law has been generated through hundreds of years of decisions
Right.
and the court system based on factual circumstances. Statutory law comes in and, for example, says if there's not a reasonable number of languages on it spelled out lift on the
Right.
thing, then ye shall recover 15,000 or some crap like that. You don't have to show damages, in other words.
Yeah.
The history of tort law in our country, in the English common law system, is you have to show damages. You have to
Right.
show something happened. What happened? Did they get stuck on the plane? We can't get off, we can't get in. And they had to fly around the world again or
Yeah,
something,
right.
until somebody finally came by and said, no, it says lift. Oh, thank God.
it does not say push.
That's right.
I don't know what this
Don't
is.
know
already.
what to do.
Don't know. Hey, I'm pushing the button.
That's right. Or if the emergency thing didn't open and they got stuck in there and they died, okay. But,
Then go ahead and sue.
well, exactly.
dead body.
That's right. Well, their heirs can sue at that
Yeah,
point.
that's right.
But without damages, this should be a go take a hike moment. But
$15,000.
yeah, fortunately, like you said, it's not the U.S. Although we do have more and more statutory damage laws.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Strict
Speaking of suits,
Mm-hmm.
travelers can now sue the TSA over screener mistreatment, says the court.
Yeah, now this is interesting because to me, the screeners are committing sexual molestation all the time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just what they do.
Right.
There's so much sexual molestation going on at the airport. I bet there are people who go to the airport just to watch the screeners molest
Well,
passengers.
and how about the guys that want to get, hey, a little higher, a little higher. That's
right.
good. It just,
there's probably a secret film recording thing of sexy TSA searches or
yeah,
something.
right. Yeah, right.
There's probably at least one TSA guy who films himself screening passengers and then sells it on the internet under a secret name. This is just insanity. I can't believe we haven't gotten over this after 18 years.
And gotten over what?
The TSA.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that. It's interesting. It's a 9-4 decision by the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, and it says it's a setback for the transportation for the TSA. Mm-hmm. The government is, as you know, is generally immune from lawsuits because they have what is it called?
Diplomatic.
Diplomatic,
Color of authority.
It's a conditional. What's it
There
called?
you go. Sure. That'll do it.
And the government generally immune for the actions of officers who can conduct searches and arrest people. A district court said officers are just screeners who inspect passengers and bags. The appeals said, however, the screeners aren't entitled to immunity from lawsuits because they perform searches for violations of federal law. The court majority noted that the TSA calls the screeners officers. They wear uniforms with badges, distinct badges that include a title, and they hold positions of authority. The minority said basically they should be immune because they can, and I like this, they conduct routine, suspicionless searches that are now standard at airports. Well, I don't like this.
That's a legal standard.
Is it suspicionless?
Yeah, it's because the lowest standard that you can.
We don't suspect you of anything, but we're going to pat you down anyway.
Well, no. In fact, they have to suspect you of something, and the standard is the something has to be articulable.
Okay.
So it has to be an articulable suspicion.
Okay.
And by that, it just means something that you can say, like the way that he was standing or swaying or he was sweating profusely or some
bulge in his pants.
That's it. Some type of indication. But you can't say, for example, that excludes things like, I just had a hunch.
Yeah.
Or I didn't like the way he was looking at me. It's something.
I don't like the way you're looking at me.
That's right. Now, if you describe the way, if you articulate the way, his eyes were shifting back and forth very rapid. Okay, then that's articulation. So it's a legal standard. So what they're trying to do is get around the legal standard here by saying, they're trying to show you that these searches don't even require articulable suspicion.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yes.
Routine suspicionless searches are now standard at airports. But
they're just telling you that they don't need any reason.
Okay.
Normally you need a reason.
Yeah.
An officer needs a reason.
But they don't. They certainly don't now, do they? At all. Everybody gets treated equally or mistreated equally.
That's why there's a sign when you walk in the door that says, if you come onto this property prepared to be ass raped, basically.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Because it could happen.
Yeah. Well, speaking of airports, there's a cabal of Democrat senators that want airline pricing transparency. So if they've sent a letter to the TSA, Transportation Secretary, and asked her to delve into the old bugaboo in the airline industry, transparency in advertising fares and price competition among the carriers. And we continue to have concerns, they say, the Democrat senators, have potentially anti-competitive and anti-consumer behavior among the airlines. Yeah, well, the TSA is anti-consumer. Anti-consumer behavior among airlines that may be suppressing consumer ability to make informed flight decisions.
The good news is all the airlines that are making anti-consumer decisions will soon go out of business.
Well, not only that, when you think about it, they do make some anti-consumer decisions by, making the seats closer together and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of people. I
bet you that's pursuant to some type of regulatory scheme.
It might be. I mean, up to a point, yeah. But they would have the ability to expand that if they wanted to. Take out a couple of seats and make them further apart, I suppose. But again, one of the things about this transparency, what they're worried about is, say, the request to study, where they're going to study whether airlines restrict, quote, distribution or display of airline flight information, and whether that constitutes an unfair and deceptive business practice.
Man, there's 47 different online services where you can type in the fare.
Well, here's what they're worried about.
I mean, there's Kayak, which compares the 17 different systems, and then
what they're worried about is they cite one example. And that is apparently Delta Airlines prohibits certain third-party price comparisons for travel on travel websites, including online travel agencies and metasearch subbases, from fully accessing the airline's flight data. So you
can't pick which seat you're going to get, or whether you're going to get.
I don't know, but I'm saying what I'm getting is this shows you what I'm sitting there thinking is, shut up. What a bunch of maroons. I mean, this is. One of the things that's interesting is until the airlines were regulated, totally regulated, everything, down to everything, until about 79, when Jimmy Carter lifted the regulations. Okay. Up until that time, the fares were fixed. I mean, they still are a lot of things. For instance, you still can't have foreign flagged airlines fly into New York and then jump all over the place in the United States.
Yeah, I know.
You could go into New York and then you have to go away.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But the point is, if you can call up on any given day, the airfares for 14 different flights, different stuff like that. I mean, it's stunning to kind of say
transparent.
It is as transparent as you can imagine.
Well, and here's the thing: I can tell you from personal experience, if there's no price, I'm not going to look any further at that one.
Yeah.
So they can,
right?
It may be anti-consumer behavior, but they're removing themselves from consideration.
Yeah.
in some regard, the price transparency is an advertisement.
Yeah.
So
and it totally is. I mean, but to me, these are the libs, the quadro libs here. That it's Elizabeth Warren and I don't know whoever's involved in it. These are the big name people. I don't remember who it was. Let's see, Elizabeth Warren, Richard Blumenthal, Ed Markey, and Ron Wyden, and Dianne Feinstein.
Ron White?
Wyden, Oregon. Yeah, Ron Wyden. These are the ultra libs, and for some reason they've decided to make it.
Well, these are the people who, I can tell you why. It's because they don't trust the market.
Yeah.
They don't understand that if the airlines were simply free to do what they would do, then prices would come down, service would go up, and things would be consumer friendly on purpose.
Yeah.
And so they should allow greater competition. But these are people who don't understand anything about the competition aspect of business. So from their perspective, the only way business is going to get better is if somebody orders them to, because business is just evil. Profits are evil, according to Warren.
Yeah. Well, one of the little catchphrases that I caught, and this applies to so many things, and that is, if you don't understand it, don't mess with it. And the simple fact is, they don't understand anything. They don't understand the market. No, the stuff that they delve into.
They think they do.
They can't. I mean, this is, the arrogance of somebody who thinks that they can understand the decision making for a million people a day.
Right. But you see, that's not what you understand it to be that. See, they don't think it's that complicated. They think it's super simple. They learned it in Economics 1. Actually, they didn't even learn it in Economics 101. They learned it in Socialism 101.
Yeah.
Which is, okay, these people have money and these people don't. Clearly, the way to rectify this is to take the money from these people and give it to those people. It's so simple. And if you can't see that, then you're obviously evil.
Well, of course, the question is, and when you go to them, and this is what happens, you say, well, you do know that in 1970, the early 70s, when they passed the anti-poverty, whatever it was, the war on poverty,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's been almost 50 years since that was
People
there.
have stood in the way.
And well, I mean, here's the deal: you've thrown trillions of the transfer money, and nothing's changed. So
Well, no, we've come a long way.
yeah, right. Well, I just the problem is when you point out something to what about Venezuela? What about the Democratic Congo? What about Zimbabwe? Oh, that's different. No, forget that. That's all. We don't. You're talking to the wrong stuff. We do it right here.
Well, as we've said, some people they're going to fight if you're challenging them, but you're talking to the peripheral. You're talking to the other people who see the argument. So it's worth making, even if you're not going to convince the person.
Well, the thing is, I've always said, is that emotion trumps logic all the time.
It does for the most part, but logic can be sticky. It can stick in your craw and sort of force.
Maybe if it's I suppose if you're lying, if you start with a premise that the Earth is flat.
Right.
And go from there. Well, that's you can logically do whatever you want with that, but the premise sucks.
Well, no, I meant you would encounter examples to the contrary so often you would be unable to deny it after some time.
Right. Well, yeah, that's right. But they don't not gonna do that. Okay. However, the one nice thing is there are I've been watching recently, actually, as a matter of fact, on TED Talks and YouTube and some other stuff, that people giving talks on why there is, and we're going to talk about it here in a minute. The climate change business. Let me just see here what I've got.
You had something about Greenland melting, or
No. I was going to talk about NASA. NASA admits that climate change occurs because the Earth changes in the Earth's orbit.
well,
And not SUVs. In other words, they said for 60 years they've known this, and now they're just finally admitting it.
but that article is just talking about the Milankovitch cycles.
Right, exactly. And the fact is that the Earth, when you think about the stuff that when it comes, as it does all the time, when you realize that the Earth, the tilt varies, 5 or 10, 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees. Number one, the orbit is elliptical, and sometimes it's closer and sometimes it's further. And the sun sometimes is warmer and sometimes not so much. I mean, the sun changes its
And there's a third precessionary.
Right, there's another precession. Right. So and so the point is that what they've kind of computed all this stuff and said, it's going to happen no matter what you do. But so I believe NASA this time. I believe that that is nothing we can do about it. However, that's not going to stop people from trying.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists and designers are proposing radical ways to refreeze the Arctic.
Wait, scientists?
Well, look, I never can put a PhD after their name. You don't have to check it. Posed by this is Indonesian. These are Indonesian designers with an eye-catching response to the climate crisis.
Indonesian hash traders, you said?
Right, exactly. So anyway, no, this actually made the news, and they want to have iceberg-making submarines. Oh. Andrew Shepard, a professor of Earth observation at the United Kingdom's Leeds University, described the idea as an interesting engineering solution. Though he questioned the project's scalability, he estimated that replacing solar ice at the same rate it has disappeared in the last 4 decades would require about 10 million submarines.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, that's the dumbest idea. Since
I know. Well, I had to do it back up. But this is what climate change does. There's actually people that are talking about this.
Like I said, I think that's the all-star basketball team or something. That can't be a group of legitimate scientists.
You wouldn't think so. All right, let me just see here. I got that thing there. I did see where
NASA does know about the Milankovitch cycles. I think it's pretty well calculated into their current estimates, but just when you go to the website, the estimates of all the things changing are just way off from what the news says they are. So that's the...
Oh, speaking of which, we dodged the bullet here.
Oh, the old hurricane.
The
Yes, well.
We were lucky. You were lucky.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm serious. We dodged the...
So here's the original forecast map.
Okay.
So this, as you can see, at more than 50% of the forecast...
Now, for those of you who don't know where we are,
we're right here in the middle of Florida.
We're right in the middle of Florida, up near the Georgia border.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. The point of this forecast map is to show you that all of the forecasts but 3, this is about, I would say, 12 at least different forecasts, and all of them but 3 have the hurricane hitting Florida, and yet this is the second map, and now we're down to 3 hitting and all the rest missing. And then, of course, the final map with all of them missing Florida.
Right.
And, of course,
and
none of
over,
them...
this is over a 2-day period.
Right. Well, throughout...
3 maybe.
Yeah. So also, though, none of the models had the hurricane sitting on top of Freeport and just pounding it for 2 days.
No, I know.
None of them.
Yeah.
0. So when people talk about the science climate models...
Well, this is what I've said this before. I don't know if
I know we have. This was just a great way to...
Well, I know, but I want to mention it again.
Okay.
Because everybody says, well, weather is different from climate. Okay, I can buy that. But when you realize, as I said, I think I said last time, the amount of computing power that's in this watch is like 100 times more computing power than they sent astronauts to the moon, when you think about that. So you get this kind of computing power in a room of 1 million of these, a giant water-cooled, multi whatever it is, gigaflop computer or whatever it is, and it can't even figure out 2 days out. And you're going to use this giant monster supercomputer to figure out what the weather's going to be like in the year, 2100.
Yeah. It has to do with the givens, as you know.
Yeah.
You can do a whole ton of calculations, and if the givens are off, then your answer is just going to be way off. And I was looking at, for example, a record of a bunch of different temperature estimates going back to 1880 from various weather not forecasters, but reporters, basically.
Okay.
So, and there was the Japanese Weather Association, the European, the Americans, all these different, Russia, whatever. There's about 12 of them. And they all purported to show changes in temperature down to about 1/10 of a degree centigrade, going back 140 years.
Okay.
Covering the entire Earth.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just questioning.
You're going to call bullshit on
I
this?
am.
Okay.
I want to see the givens on that. I want to see what the significant digits of an ice core are, or a tree ring, and you could tell me that it's to 1/10 of a degree averaged over the entire planet.
No.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that. So now another theory, just to point out that's been popping up more and more in terms of the global warming hypotheses, is the cosmic radiation effect on cloud formation. Water vapor is a much greater greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide.
Really? Okay.
Yes. And to the extent that they overlap in some ways, but to the extent that there are clouds, it really has an impact on temperature.
Okay.
And clouds apparently are seeded by cosmic rays. And so as our magnetic field fluctuates, or as the intensity of the rays change coming off of the sun, there's more or less cloud cover, which has a direct impact on the Earth temperature. So just an alternative theory that's competing with the CO2 theory and cuts against it in some ways. So we'll learn more, and if we all die in the next 12 years. Right?
Yeah, that's right. That's another thing. When I'm thinking about this, when I see these people lately, more people have been coming out and saying this global warming is hogwash. More people I mean, it's amazing. It's starting to bubble to the surface. And of course, what the global warming fanatics, it's all about control. And of course, as I just said, if you don't understand it, don't mess with it. I mean, here you're gonna plunge in there and have your million submarines to, re-ice the whatever it is. I mean, what the hell are you doing? And what could possibly go wrong on all this stuff? What could possibly go wrong?
Right. Well,
everything.
Yeah.
And not to mention to impoverish everybody.
That's true. And of course, there may be nice benefits of the warming, as we talked about.
Yeah.
The warming continues for another 2,000 years because the Milankovitch cycles will continue. We get northwest passage through the Arctic.
Right.
We get more greening happening all over the planet. Longer growing seasons, things like that. More arid land, more arable land. So there's benefits.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And speaking of which, interestingly enough, I don't know about climate change exactly, but on a minuscule basis, more than 100 seal pups were born in the Thames 60 years after the river was declared biologically dead. Now, you may not realize this, but one of the reasons that they had started the underground sewage system in London was because typhoid and everything like that, and people would throw their garbage literally out in the streets. And so they finally, I guess because of there was this epidemic, I think of typhus or something, and that's when they went and built these huge underground sewage disposal places, and it mostly emptied into the Thames. Well, of course, then the Thames went up and died because of all the sewage. So they have, what they did is, in the last 60 years, they've apparently done a lot of changing to make sure that all the pollution doesn't go into Thames. Suddenly, now 60 years after it was declared dead, they have 100 seal pups. I didn't know this. I mean, these are, what do you call it, the seals, the harbor seals. And they were thrilled. 138 pups born in a single season. The seals would not be able to pup here at all without a reliable food source. So all the fish are coming back. There was even a beluga whale that showed up for 3 months. And they named him Nicky or something. I don't know what it was. So these include more than 100 species of fish, 2 species of shark, short-snouted seahorses. You know, little seahorses, amazing, and on the some critically endangered European eel has also showed up. So I think it's interesting that that on a local level you can do something like this. But as far as this is the Thames River, okay. I would imagine that if you're up at 30,000 feet, you probably wouldn't be able to make out the Thames.
Probably not.
So, but anyway, it shows you what can be done locally. And that's all well and good. I thought that was interesting.
Well, to me, this is a dangerous story, mostly because they spell the name of the river wrong.
Did they?
Of course.
It's spelled Thames.
Exactly. It's spelled Thames.
Yeah.
So if you want people to call it the Thames, then spell it Thames. If you want people to call it the Tems or the Thames, you could do Tims or Tems. But that's the way you spell it if you're going to have it in English. I'm just letting them know.
Well, you have to understand that is English over there. Remember, it's called England for a reason.
Well,
and in England they speak, I don't know, English.
Well, they messed it up in this one. They borrowed this from the French or something. Some Norman named this river or something.
Okay.
They messed it up, and I'm just letting them know.
Okay.
People over here call it the Thames.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I mean, there's some bougie people who
well,
are like,
what was it? You know what? If you look at something, I never forget this. In the 12th grade, we were looking at something, and there's a town. There's a town in England. There's a town, I think, in Massachusetts, and it's spelled Leicester. It's pronounced Leicester. It is. It's pronounced Leicester.
Yeah.
And so but they do that all the time. I mean, it's. Just...
I'm just saying, you need to lose a few letters there.
Okay. All right. Now, this is another piece of bad news. We're going to go down under into Australia.
All right.
All right, yes. A woman was killed by her pet rooster. Now, you remember we had a couple of weeks ago that big bird.
Caraway.
The caraway that killed the farmer. Mm-hmm. I mean, and you saw the
Yeah, but that's not... bad. This is embarrassing.
A woman died after being pecked by her pet rooster while she collected the eggs from the chicken coop in her garden, according to a report. The elderly woman from South Australia died after the rooster's beak reportedly punctured a varicose vein and caused it to bleed profusely. She suffered numerous other injuries, but basically they said it was from blood loss.
So when chickens are mass bred, the very first thing they do is clip their beaks off.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, because they have a very sharp, hooked beak.
I did not know.
And it's very possible that this woman's was a natural chicken.
Yeah.
And had the hooked beak. And it is literally, it's a razor hook.
Yeah.
And so they do some serious damage with that pecking. I mean, and that's why it's, well, bam, bam, bam. I mean, they're tearing stuff up. And if they get a vein...
it's interesting because a public warning has been issued. Mm-hmm. They decided to announce that the danger, Will Robinson, seemingly harmless animals, danger, public warning, go clip your beak or something.
Yeah.
Now, surprisingly, another piece of news here.
Surprise!
Surprise! Jeffrey Epstein's fixer, who ran a major modeling agency, vanishes like a ghost. This guy, millionaire model agency boss, thought to have vital evidence about Jeffrey Epstein's sex scandal, has vanished. Investigators, they want to interview this guy, Jean-Luc Brunei, Jean-Luc Picard, I don't know, 72, and said he's a ghost. He's disappeared without a trace. And now that
I thought he was seen in Arkansas at one point.
I don't know. They spotted him. I don't know. They've seen him. They're looking for him in Brazil, the U.S., and Europe. And so the French prosecutors have opened up their own inquiry. He found the New York model agency and found such supermodels as Christy Turlington. And of course, he has strenuously denied any whatever it is, but he's disappeared.
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple things about that. Of course, if he was a really key player, we would have known about him before, so I doubt anybody disappeared him. And I would disappear myself.
He probably said something bad about the Clintons.
Well, maybe. That's what I'm saying. The other option is he disappeared himself, which I would do if I was associated with Epstein.
Boy, you and me both. That's right. If you were a millionaire...
They're calling him a convicted pedophile. He's got a conviction for solicitation of prostitution.
Right.
That's his conviction.
Yeah.
And yet he's been painted as like a child serial rapist or something.
Right. Yeah, well,
I mean, that's what the rumors are, obviously. But... nobody's brought forth any actual proof or anything.
Okay, well let me just go here. I got a two things right here at the end.
Okay.
This is really interesting.
Okay.
Scientists have found an unexplained shiny gel on the far side of the moon. This has to do with here's what I'm saying. Mysterious substance spotted by a Chinese lunar lander, and it's unclear what the unusual thing is. It was driving over the moon surface. The Chinese, whatever they call it, U-22, spotted a strange shining object and examined the substance, but they still can't figure out what it is. And so it's something. It's unusual. Now, I'm beginning.
It's our golf ball.
Huh? It could be a golf ball. It also could be, the moon's made of cheese. Maybe it's melted cheese. Mm-hmm. The tardigrades, maybe.
Yeah, it's spreading.
The spreading. Yeah. I mean, this is what.
Yeah. I mean, could this be? When the astronauts were on the dark side of the moon, they chucked out a little ballast or something?
Yeah, something, right. As well as the one guy who was flying up there, as he went around, he opened up the hatch and threw something out. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's exactly right. So, anyway, and not to be outdone here, right, and my last thing I've got is the House Democrats not content with anything else. They still are after Trump. Now they have brand new, Nadler and the whole crowd there have decided to open up hearings on the hush money that was spent to silence Stormy.
No
they are going to reopen all of that again.
They need to give Dershowitz a call because he can literally explain to them in less than 30 seconds the exact reasons why none of their accusations hold any water. They're in a catch-22 in terms of whether the contributions were campaign funds, who particularly gave them, and why they were given, and they can't get out of the catch-22. So,
the other thing that I thought was interesting, and that was when you just said, does the accusations hold water? Now, for those of you who have not seen My Cousin Vinny, you need to go to the end, and when Joe Pesci is interviewing what's her name, Maria Tomei. Well, does what she said hold water? And so that you need to see that scene. It's one of the best scenes at all when he gets the kids off. Okay, I'm done.
A couple quick things. Trump tweeted 100 times over the holiday weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
So somebody's actually keeping count of all
Well, that was pretty good. Zimbabwe public hospital doctors are on strike.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they're not getting paid, or they're getting paid.
Well,
what their pay has risen to $42 billion an hour?
Exactly. and their cost of living is $42 trillion an hour.
Exactly.
So, and that's exactly correct. They're objecting to the massive inflation. They want their pay pegged to the US dollar.
And makes perfect sense to me. I mean, what they should do is have it pegged to gold.
Yes.
That's what you do.
No kidding. But also consider the concept of public doctors. If there's going to be one group of doctors, one unionized group, then if they strike,
death stalks the
woo!
The ward.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, my final thing. An American tennis champ, doubles tennis champ, was fined $10,000 the other day.
Okay, and?
Because during the middle of their match, a ball hit out and he knew it was out, but the line judge called it in. So, looking at the line judge, he spun his racket around to make it into a gun, and he shot the line judge.
And
then he spun it back around.
And so that was 10,000?
10,000! All in advance.
Well,
it's just amazing that these adults are associating a harmless gesture like that.
Oh, yeah.
Which is obviously a fairly mild objection relative to how objections go on tennis courts in Grand Slam matches, right? And obviously doesn't intend anything evil by it. He's not calling his minions out to assassinate these people or anything like that. And yet they hit him with a $10,000 real actual dollar fine.
So, I mean, what happens, if you do this or something, I guess
That's not 10,000.
No, it didn't? Okay.
No, I mean, that might be something.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's 10,000. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is. I guess I should check the schedule of fines.
Yeah, right.
But it seems to me that associating something like that, what they're obviously doing is they just turned off the news and they had just seen a mass shooting and wherever.
Yeah, right.
And so they were like, oh, he's being this crazy person, or no, he's not.
Was that tennis racket loaded?
Exactly. He's he's making an objection, but just interesting.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's it, lads. That's all you get.
That's it.
That's it. We thank Kevin McLeod. Damn you, McLeod, for providing these wonderful tracks. Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate it. Also, this particular episode of the Jimmy Doane Show brought to you by Florida Cannabis. Florida Cannabis, the company of the future. In fact, so much so that they're not even a real company yet, but they will be. They'll be selling weed and clothing and pet food and even building supplies, all made out of 100% Kentucky hemp. Did I say Kentucky? Yes, Kentucky. Kentucky provides all the weed from Florida Cannabis. Why Kentucky and not Florida? Because Kentucky got off their asses and legalized weed before Florida did, and now they own the market. So, get a piece of the future. Look for Florida Cannabis coming soon to a market near you. It's all in your head. How's that for an advertisement?
That's good. Well, it is interesting because the hemp is not hallucinogenic or anything.
No.
And one of the great, if you ever get a chance to watch Jeeves and Wooster, they had 20, 30 different shows, Jeeves and Wooster, and they're really, really good. But one of them, he goes to find out to a hemp guy to get money. Okay. And the guy says, "Oh, this was made out of hemp." And they have everything. They got it. But this is, in the 1920s when hemp was totally legal.
Well, it's coming. It's coming and we're going.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next time. I'm Council Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doane Show. Come join us 4 o'clock on Sunday. See ya.
Well, as a matter of fact, yeah, we'll have a Florida football game under our belt.
Oh, that's right. We'll report on that. We'll see how that goes. All right. Talk to you soon.